Springfield, North Carolina, June 2024. Elena Ruiz knew exactly which floorboards creaked in her house and how to avoid them when walking barefoot at night. She had learned the silent choreography of survival. Step lightly, breathe quietly, don't startle the monster. The monster, of course, wore a badge. Her husband, Officer Mason Ruiz, was a 10-year veteran of the Springfield Police Department, decorated, respected, the kind of man whose presence made neighbors feel safe. But Elena knew a different man, the one who gripped her arm too hard when she spoke out of turn, who once threw a coffee mug at the wall just inches from her face, who would spend Sunday mornings smiling at church and Sunday nights screaming in the garage. That morning, everything seemed normal. Mason left at 6:30 a.m. sharp, kissing her on the cheek like always. "Make sure the damn counters are clean today. Last time I saw crumbs." "Yes, I will." When the door shut, Elena stood still for a full 60 seconds, listening to the silence. Then she exhaled, long and slow, and finally let her shoulders drop. He was gone. She had 10 hours of air to breathe. Their house was beautiful. 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, granite countertops, solar panels, a backyard with a redwood deck Mason built himself. But every wall remembered. The dent in the hallway from the time he slammed the door, the chipped tile near the fridge from where she dropped a plate while flinching, the crack in the bedroom mirror, not from an accident. Elena cleaned in silence. She wore long sleeves even in June. The purple fading on her arm still pulsed under the fabric. Every now and then she glanced at the clock. Tick, tock. Each minute was a stitch sewn into her plan. Because this time, she wasn't just surviving, she was preparing. The phone rang at 9:12 a.m. It was Ava, her best friend from college, the only person Elena had dared to tell. "I checked the shelter again. There's a bed open, but they can't hold it more than 3 days." "Okay, I'm close." "You're not alone, okay?" "I know." But she didn't. Not really. Not yet. That afternoon, she sat at the kitchen table with a legal pad. She wasn't writing a letter. She was making a list. Birth certificates, cash stash behind the coffee tins, passport, phone charger, spare keys, clothes for Sophia. Sophia's teddy bear. Photos from before Mason. She paused. Then added, the tape. The tape wasn't a weapon. It was evidence. She had started recording the fights 2 months ago, quietly, on her phone tucked under the couch cushions or in the pocket of her robe. It was risky, but so was silence. One of the recordings was of Mason yelling at her 7-year-old daughter Sophia for spilling juice on the floor. His voice, deep, furious, saying, "Clean it up. Are you stupid like your mother?" That had been the moment Elena knew. She could take the bruises, but she wouldn't let Sophia learn to love fear. At 5:43 p.m., the garage door rumbled open. Elena instinctively straightened the placemats, smoothed her hair, reset her expression. Mason walked in. His uniform crisp, gun on his hip, smile on his face. "What's for dinner?" "Picadillo, just like you like it." You're a good girl when you try." He kissed the top of her head. She didn't flinch. Not outwardly. Dinner was quiet. Sophia stared at her peas. Elena watched every twitch of Mason's jaw, like a meteorologist reading the sky for storms. Then it happened. Sophia knocked her cup over. Juice spilled onto Mason's pants. He stood up, fast. "God damn it, Sophia!" His hand jerked, and from Wisteria Women's Shelter, Springfield, NC, June 2024. Elena's fingers trembled as she filled out the intake forms. She wasn't afraid of the questions. She was afraid of what they confirmed. Emergency contact? None. Do you have a restraining order? No, not yet. Was he ever physically violent toward the child? Once. Verbally, always. The woman behind the desk, a calm, brown-skinned social worker named Tasha, didn't flinch. She just nodded and passed her another form. "You're not alone now, Ms. Ruiz." Elena almost cried at the sound of that word, now, because alone had always felt permanent. Sophia was curled on a cot in the corner of their small room, clutching her bear and whispering to herself. "Mommy, are we in trouble?" "No, mija," Elena said softly. "We're in the right place." But she wasn't sure if she believed it yet. Wisteria Shelter was clean and functional, but bare. Cots, linoleum, soft voices, heavy doors. Each woman walked with the cautious grace of someone learning to breathe again. There was a list of rules tacked onto the wall. No contact with abuser. No social media check-ins. Mandatory check-in calls to legal support. No visitors without clearance. Curfew, 9 p.m. But rule number 1 stood out. Believe yourself. Believe each other. The next morning, Tasha led a short group session. 5 women, 5 chairs, 5 lives unraveling. Tasha introduced Elena as new but brave. No one asked her to tell her story. They didn't have to. One woman, Olivia, with fading bruises on her collarbone, simply reached over and squeezed her hand. That was the first moment Elena felt real again. Later that day, a pro bono lawyer named Janine met with her privately. She had already listened to one of the secret recordings Elena brought, the one with Mason's shouting and Sophia's stifled sobs. Janine's voice was low and even. "We can file for a protective order today. Based on this and your statement, I believe we'll get a 30-day emergency order immediately." Will the department protect him? They'll try, but not everyone will, especially not with that audio. Elena nodded slowly, then asked, "What if I want to press charges later?" "Then we'll press. You're the one in control now." That sentence almost didn't register. You're the one in control now. She had to repeat it in her head like a mantra. Back at the shelter, Sophia was making a drawing. It was of a house, but not theirs. This one had bright windows, no storm clouds, and a smiling girl in the yard. "Is that our new house?" Elena asked gently. "It's the one I want next time." She smiled. And that's when Elena made her second decision of the day. They wouldn't just survive, they'd start over. 2 days passed. Mason's texts came like clockwork. "Where the hell are you? Don't do this. You think anyone will believe you? You're nothing without me." Elena didn't reply. She saved them all. Time-stamped, archived. Proof. On the 4th day, the emergency protective order was granted. The officer who served it wasn't from Springfield. He handed Mason the paper at the department parking lot. Elena didn't see it, but Janine told her Mason didn't say a word, didn't deny anything, just folded the paper and walked inside. That night, the silence in the shelter felt like music. But recovery isn't a straight line. On the 6th night, Elena woke up from a nightmare. Mason's hand around her neck, the sound of the garage door, the thud of her heart trying to escape her chest. She sat up gasping. Sophia stirred beside her. "Was it him again, Mommy?" "No, baby," Elena whispered. "Just a memory." But even memories could bruise. Tasha offered therapy. Ava offered to help her find a transitional apartment. Springfield Courthouse, June 20, 2024. Elena had never seen her husband in a courtroom before, not from this side of the aisle. She had once sat in the back row during a DUI hearing, quietly watching Mason give testimony in uniform, firm and composed. The judge had nodded approvingly. But today, she wasn't there to support him. Today, she was there to stop him. The courtroom was modest, its walls lined with faded flags and portraits of long-dead judges. A soft humming filled the air, the sound of overhead lights, of barely suppressed nerves. Elena sat beside Janine, hands clasped tightly in her lap. Across the room, Mason appeared. Still clean-cut, still composed, still wearing the badge. That was the first blow. They let him wear the uniform. As if nothing had happened, as if bruises were rumors and recordings were dreams. The judge, a middle-aged woman named Clara Ellsworth, called the hearing to order. This was the formal review to determine whether the emergency protective order would be extended to a full 1-year no-contact order. Mason's lawyer, slick, young, smug, opened with charm. "Your Honor, my client is a respected public servant. He has never been charged with a crime. These allegations, while serious, are unsubstantiated and come in the middle of marital tension." Janine stood up sharply. "Your Honor, may we play 30 seconds of the recording submitted in evidence?" Permission was granted. Elena braced herself as Janine tapped play. Mason's voice filled the courtroom. "You think I won't knock that look off your face?" Glass shattering. "Pick it up, or I swear—" Sophia crying in the background. Silence. Then the judge spoke. "Stop the recording." The courtroom held its breath. "That doesn't sound like tension," the judge said evenly. "That sounds like terror." Mason's lawyer objected, claimed context, claimed emotional manipulation. But the tape had done its work. Mason's jaw clenched, but he didn't look at Elena. Not once. That was the second blow. He didn't look because he knew. After brief arguments, the judge ruled, "Ms. Ruiz, you are granted a full 1-year protective order. Officer Ruiz is to surrender all personal firearms not issued for professional use. Any violation will result in immediate arrest." A small tremble escaped Elena's chest, a gasp she didn't know she'd been holding. Mason didn't say a word. He simply stood, adjusted his tie, and walked out. His face was unreadable, but Elena didn't care anymore. She had won something real. Outside the courthouse, Janine turned to her. "This is just the first wall, Elena. There are more to knock down. But this one matters." Elena nodded. "I didn't do it just for me." "I know." That night at the shelter, she told Sophia, "Mommy went to court today. Did the judge yell at Daddy?" "No," Elena said softly, "but she told him to stay away. Forever." Sophia hugged her tightly. "Good. I don't want to be scared of footsteps anymore." Neither did Elena. Later, Elena stood in the mirror, gently touching the fading bruise on her cheek. A new mark was forming just below it, not from Mason, but from herself. It was a scar of resistance, not shame, not regret. She leaned in, whispered, "I see you now," and for the first time, she meant herself. The next morning, she went to the Springfield Police Internal Affairs Office. She filed a formal complaint, presented the recordings, gave the judge's ruling. The clerk behind the desk, a weary woman with quiet eyes, accepted the forms and said, "You're not the first wife of an officer to walk in here, but you're the first with this much courage and proof." Elena said nothing. But inside, she felt something shift, a door opening. The complaint would trigger an internal investigation. It might take months. It might go nowhere. But it was filed, stamped, dated, entered. Mason's record would never again be clean, and his badge would never again be invisible. Later that week, she met Ava at a cafe outside town. They talked about old times, Sophia, the future. "You know," Ava said, stirring her coffee, "you're not just a survivor." July 2024, Springfield Transitional Housing. The new apartment smelled like paint and promise. Elena stood in the middle of the tiny two-bedroom unit with her palms pressed together, just breathing. The space was modest, beige walls, cheap blinds, a view of the alley, but it was hers. No Mason, no footsteps, no breath on her neck in the middle of the night. Just her and Sophia and freedom. The first night in the apartment, Elena couldn't sleep. Not from fear, from stillness. The silence was so pure it felt almost foreign. No slammed doors, no barking commands, no forced apologies. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if she had forgotten how to live without flinching. In the morning, she found Sophia sitting cross-legged on the floor, drawing again. This time, her house had a tree house and a cat. "You like it here?" Elena asked, kneeling beside her. "It's small," she said honestly, "but it's not scary." That was enough. With Ava's help, Elena started working at a small accounting firm 3 days a week. The owner, Ms. Carter, was a soft-spoken woman in her 60s who never asked questions about her past, only her present. Elena told her the truth. "I haven't worked in 10 years. "That's okay," Ms. Carter replied. "You survived those 10. That counts for more than most resumes." Every day, Elena woke up at 6:30 a.m., not to prepare Mason's breakfast, but to braid Sophia's hair and pack her lunch. At 7:45, they walked to school together. At 8:15, she rode the bus downtown. By 8:45, she was behind a desk with her name on a placard that read, "Elena Ruiz, Assistant Bookkeeper." Small, quiet, powerful. And yet, healing wasn't linear. Some mornings, she'd catch her reflection in a store window and brace for a voice that never came. Sometimes she flinched when someone slammed a door too hard. Sometimes she woke up with Mason's voice echoing in her dreams. But she had begun a ritual. Every night before bed, she would look into the mirror and whisper, "You're safe. You're real. You're not his anymore." It felt silly at first, then sacred. One afternoon, after work, she came home to find a small envelope under the door. No return address, just a single sheet of paper. "You think you've won something. You're nothing without me. I made you." No signature, but she knew. Her hands shook as she folded the paper and locked it in the drawer. She didn't cry. She didn't panic. She called Janine, filed a police report, informed the apartment manager. Then she sat down at the table and began writing something new. "I made me, and you no longer define what I become." A few days later, she attended her first domestic violence survivor roundtable at the local library. The room was full of quiet strength, women and men who bore scars, seen and unseen. When it was her turn to speak, she stood up, voice soft, steady. "I used to think surviving meant hiding, but I've learned that surviving means being seen. My daughter remembers fear, but now she sees a mother who fought back. I don't want to be a victim with a past. I want to be a builder of what comes next." She sat down to quiet nods and one long, powerful clap from the back of the room. That evening, Elena passed by a mirror in the hallway. She paused. No bruises, no cracked lips, no downcast eyes. Just a woman with her chin raised, lips soft, and shoulders no longer hunched. "Hello again," she whispered. And for once, the woman in the mirror didn't look like someone broken. She looked like someone reborn. August 2024, Springfield, NC. The building was older than it looked from the street. Brick facade, dusty windows, the faint scent of linseed oil and ambition. Ava pushed open the door to Suite 2B and handed Elena the keys. "I know it's not much," she said, "but it's yours. Well, ours, but mostly yours." The words didn't land right away. Elena stepped into the space. 2 rooms, bare walls, a creaky ceiling fan. But on the door, printed on new vinyl letters, it read, "Ruiz and Rivers, Bookkeeping and Support Services." She touched the name. Her name. She had spent years being erased. Now she was etched in plastic and business records. The idea had started as a joke. Over coffee one morning, Ava had said, "You know, with your head for numbers and my head for organization, we could probably run a business better than half the men in this town." Elena had smiled but said nothing, until a week later when she woke up and thought, why not? They took a microloan, filed the LLC papers, got business cards printed. Now the room was empty, but full of possibility. By the second week of August, they had 3 clients, a hair salon needing payroll help, a retired veteran with tax trouble, and a battered women's shelter needing quarterly reports. Elena never thought spreadsheets could feel so holy. But every line she balanced, every invoice she processed, was a tiny act of ownership. Meanwhile, Mason had gone quiet. The internal affairs investigation was underway. He'd been placed on administrative leave. Rumor said he blamed a crazy wife with revenge fantasies. But nobody said it loud around her anymore, because the town was watching, and so was the law. Janine updated her every week. "He hasn't violated the order again, but if he does, we go straight to court." Elena nodded. "Let him watch. I'm not hiding anymore." Sophia's school started on a rainy Monday. Elena braided her hair in the soft morning light. "Mommy, can I tell people we have our own business?" "You can tell them whatever you want." "Even that Daddy's gone?" Elena hesitated. "Maybe just tell them we're a team now, you and me." Sophia smiled. "We're a good team." And Elena realized that might be the best thing she had ever built. Later that week, Elena got a call from the shelter. Tasha, the social worker, said, "One of our new girls, she's scared, like you were. I told her about you." "You mean my case?" "No," Tasha said gently, "you." So Elena came back, not as a client, but as a voice. She sat in the group circle again, but this time her hands didn't shake, her sleeves were rolled up. She told them about the bruises, the silence, the tape, the first night away, the letter, the mirror, and the door with her name on it. When she finished, one woman, maybe 20, barely holding her own baby, asked, "How did you know it was time?" Elena looked down for a moment, then said, "When I realized fear didn't have to be forever." Later that night, she lit a candle in her apartment. Not for prayer, for remembrance. She placed a photo next to it, one of her and Sophia, taken just last week on the porch of their building, both smiling. No bruises, no shadows, just joy. She whispered, "This is the house that love built." But the past always lingers. 2 days later, she received another envelope. No return address. Inside, a photo. Her walking Sophia to school. On the back, One line written in shaky ink. "I still see you." Her stomach dropped. She sat for a full minute in silence. Then she picked up her phone. By nightfall, a police officer, female this time, came to her apartment. They took the letter, the photo, and dusted for prints. The officer didn't promise anything, but she said, "You did the right thing, again." Elena nodded, her voice even. "He may still see me, but I see me now too, and I like what I see." That night, Sophia asked, "Are we still safe, Mommy?" She kissed her forehead. "Yes, mija, because this time we're not alone, and we're not quiet." September 2024, Springfield Community Hall. The folding chairs were half filled, but the energy in the room was full of breath. Elena stood at the front, beside a modest podium. Behind her, a poster read, "Survivors Speak, Stories That Change Systems." She was the closing speaker, not a politician, not a professional, just a woman who survived and built. As she stepped up to the mic, Sophia waved from the second row, Ava beside her. Janine gave a subtle nod from across the room. Tasha sat in the back, arms crossed, eyes warm. Elena took a breath and began. "My name is Elena Ruiz. I used to live in a house with granite countertops and hardwood floors. People thought it was perfect. I pretended it was peaceful. But inside that house, my daughter learned how to be small, and I learned how to disappear." The room went still. When I finally left, I didn't know where I was going, but I knew what I wanted. A space where no voice had to hide. A place where no wall would remember fear. A home where silence wasn't the price of survival. Now, I have that. It's not big, it's not fancy, but it's filled with truth, and love, and laughter. She looked at Sophia, and she's learning to raise her voice, because she watched me reclaim mine. The room erupted in applause, not loud, but long, not showy, but sincere. And in that moment, Elena didn't feel like a victim. She didn't feel like a survivor. She felt like a builder, of homes, of futures, of legacies. That night, back at the apartment, Sophia drew again. A house, but this time she added something new. A garden with women standing hand in hand, a banner that read, "We help each other stand," and a tiny building with a sign, "Ruiz and Rivers." "It's our castle," Sophia said proudly. Elena smiled. "It's our kingdom." 3 weeks later, Elena received a letter from the Springfield Police Department. The internal investigation had concluded. Mason had been found in violation of multiple departmental policies, including misconduct, abuse of power, and failure to disclose a protective order. He was no longer on the force. There was no celebration, just closure, and a quiet exhale. Elena didn't tell Sophia the details. She didn't need to. Some victories are best kept in peace. In the months that followed, Ruiz and Rivers grew. They took on more clients, nonprofits, small businesses, 2 other survivors who wanted help starting their own ventures. They repainted the walls, hung a frame over the entrance. Inside it, a photo of a woman standing on a porch holding her daughter's hand. Below it, in soft script, "The house that love built." On the anniversary of her departure, Elena returned to the shelter, not to stay, but to speak. There was a new mother there, scared, quiet. Her arms bore fresh reminders. Her voice trembled. Elena sat beside her and said, "One day you'll stop flinching at shadows. One day your breath will be your own. And when you look in the mirror, you'll see a woman you'd fight to protect. Start fighting now." Outside, the sun broke through the clouds. Elena walked home, shoulders high, heels steady, keys in hand. When she turned the corner to her building, she paused. A neighbor was watering the sidewalk garden. 2 kids played chalk hopscotch near the steps. Sophia was waving from the window. Home. No fear, no silence. Just a house filled with laughter, light, and love.